Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Matt Hartman from Tour de Force CRM, and we're going to go ahead and get started this afternoon with the webinar. This webinar will be recorded, and there will be a link available post the webinar that will get posted probably within the next 24 hours, and you guys will all receive a link to that. So if you want to share anything with the rest of your team or view anything that we covered today, again, you'll be able to do that. A couple of housekeeping issues before we get started. First of all, in your Zoom meeting or Zoom webinar panel, up at the top of your screen where you're viewing the screen, you should be able to hover your mouse over that during the session. And if you have any questions during the session, you should see a Q&A icon that you can click on and submit your questions. Before we get off today, we're planning on going about 45 to 50 minutes. This is a new webinar, so it's the content is new. So I haven't done it before to have an exact idea of how long this is going to take, but I'm going to try to respect your time, keep it to 45, 50 minutes. We'll leave time for 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A, and then we'll wrap up right around 3 o'clock at the 60-minute mark. So if you have questions, once again, hover your mouse over the top. You should see the Zoom control panel at the top, and you should see a Q&A button there. Okay, this afternoon's webinar is focused on the advanced quoting features in Tour de Force CRM. Quoting features are not typically features that a lot of people look at when they're looking for CRM. But keeping in conjunction with everything that Tour de Force is focused on, minimizing islands of data, consolidating the amount of applications users have to use. Quoting is something that in the distribution manufacturing sector that we focus very heavily is obviously a very major thing that people do and spend a lot of time doing. And it's also one of those areas that tends to be the least efficient. People don't do a very good job of managing quoting, being able to track quoting, and so that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Are how does Tour de Force address a lot of that for you? First of all, as I already mentioned, my name is Matt Hartman. I'm the president and CEO of Tour de Force, and I just a little bit of background. Don't want to make this about me, but a little bit of history is that I actually came from the distribution world, the electrical industry to be exact. A lot of years of experience in working in a distributor, all facets of the distribution world. Then spent a few years doing consulting for the distribution industry, and then in 1999 started the development of what ultimately became the Tour de Force product, which is what we do today. Little background on our company. As I said, Tour de Force has been around officially since October 1st of 2001. I am the former owner of an electrical distributor and the founder of Tour de Force CRM. The sole focus of Tour de Force is the design, development, sales, and deployment of our enterprise CRM, Salesforce automation, and BI solutions, which we call the Tour de Force suite of products. Tour de Force is currently installed at over 200 enterprise locations, about 10,000 users, actually over 10,000 users now. About 80% of our clients are in the distribution industry, with the remaining 20%, let's say 18% probably, in the manufacturing sector. So we're very, very focused in those vertical markets. We do have channel partners and channel programs of partners that sell our product into other verticals, but as a company, our direct focus is in that distribution manufacturing space. One of the things that Tour de Force has prided ourselves on over the years is our continual retention rate of our clients. So when we talk about a 7-year rolling retention, really what that means is that over the course of the trailing 7 years, we're always looking back at the last 7 to see, of those people that have bought our product, how many of those people are, those companies are still active on a maintenance plan with Tour de Force. And over the last couple of years, with the expanded functionality that we continue to introduce, our goal is to continue to penetrate areas of inefficiency within the distribution or manufacturing space. Really anything that's outside of that ERP system, Tour de Force has probably got a solution to help you better manage information and processes within your organization. And really that's been the big reasons of our retention rates, is because we have a very sticky product, a very unique product. It's not easily replaceable, and it becomes a part of the way you do business. Tour de force is implemented through what we call a roadmap implementation process, and the roadmap to success is a significant reason why we have such high degrees of success, because we really try to get engaged with your organization and dig deep into your business processes to better understand and help you improve all of those processes. Allow your sales organization to run as efficiently as possible, gain access to information faster, process things faster, and all of that is going to contribute to a much more effective organization, because you're going to have a lot more time to sell and a lot less time chasing information. Tour de force implements our product through a team of business consultants that have a tremendous amount of experience in the industry. So you're not going to have a business consultant show up at your doorstep for that first site visit, and then you sit down in a conference room and you have to explain everything about your business. More than likely, that consultant has been there, done that, and seen a lot of different distributors just like you, or manufacturers just like you, and they're going to have the ability to really draw from that experience and the best practices that they've been a part of before. Now, one of the things, as I mentioned already, the tour de force really expands far beyond, the traditional CRM. When you look at, there's a lot of industry niche products that have very, very narrow focus, very narrow feature sets. Tour de force is a very, very broad product that has a very broad product offering to really help you optimize all of your business processes. And that's what we refer to as tour de force as a BPO solution. So the acronym BPO stands for Business Process Optimization. And it's hard to look at any organization and look at optimizing processes if you don't focus on how people gain information about the customer. So the business intelligence component. How do you automate sales processes? The Salesforce automation. The general CRM functions of just accessing and better sharing of information related to your clients. And then you can't do all of that without obviously connecting or being directly interfaced to that ERP system. And that's really one of the things that Tour de force has excelled at over the years, is our deep levels of integration with over 40 different ERP systems. We were recognized for our accomplishments recently, actually in July of this year. Gartner Research, which is a lot of people would consider Gartner to be the authority on technology solutions. They do a lot of in-depth evaluation of different technology solutions. And Gartner recognized tour de force in the July 2014 Magic Quadrant for Salesforce Automation. And they recognized us as a niche offering in the distribution and manufacturing space. And what they recognized us for, which is not common, and typically Gartner doesn't focus on highly vertically oriented or niche products within a vertical in their Magic Quadrant. But they recognize tour de force for our exceptional ability to integrate to the ERP, very high retention rates with our clients, as well as being very focused and deep in the industries that we serve. And the reality is, when you look at CRM, this is my opinion, but in my opinion, CRM has truly become a commodity within the industry. And I always tell people, anytime we're in a competitive selling situation, and all of you that are on the call today, think big, dig deep, and look for the differentiators when you're looking for a CRM solution. Don't allow your focus to be just on the basic CRM functions of managing an account and activities and opportunities and appointments and tasks. Look for those things that you're going to need 6 months from now, 9 months from now, those other areas of your business that really should be considered and that tour de force is probably going to have an answer for. So lots of our competitors focus in those basic commodity areas of CRM, and they really don't expand very deep, and they don't expand very broad within your organization. Now, for the session today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the dynamics of quoting in your business. I'm sure a lot of the examples that I'm going to go through today are examples that all of you can relate to. Then I want to go through the quoting functions of tour de force, and we'll talk about and walk through a lot of the different configuration options. Every distributor, every manufacturer's got their own little nuances and things that they like, that they do different based on their industry. Are they an automation distributor, a commodities distributor, a single line manufacturer that has very basic needs? Are you a distributor that gets involved in a lot of public bid business where you're dealing with lot bill of materials and jobs? Those are all different things that Tour de Force has been there, done that, and we've got a lot of different configuration options in the quoting system to address those shortfalls that typically exist within the ERP package, which is a lot of the reason why a lot of distributors quote everything except that general price and availability type of items, or the commodity items often get quoted outside of the ERP system. And we want to talk about that today. I'll then give you a demonstration of how the quoting works within the Tour de Force core product. And when I talk about the Tour de Force core product, that's our client server-based application that is going to work within the core of Microsoft Outlook or on a desktop. And then we'll also go through a demonstration of how quoting works in the mobile CRM. You know, it's hard to address the needs of any sales organization that has mobile sales professionals if you can't provide a web-based UI that is easily accessible from a tablet or a smartphone device. So Tour de Force Mobile is our answer to that, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Now, over the years, there's been a lot of things that have differentiated Tour de Force. And, you know, when we talk, you know, what are our big competitive advantages, you know, we typically focus on these 9 core areas. We're not going to have time to go into all of these areas today, but you need to be aware of them. You know, our ERP integration, our Outlook integration, the breadth and depth of our mobile solution, a lot of advanced level features for distribution that you just won't find in a typical CRM, a very flexible reporting engine, a workflow engine, and then what we're going to focus on today is that integrated quoting that is going to interface with an ERP system. And then the last item on the list is our user group. And quite frankly, that is a significantly important thing for you to consider, because as you begin to dive in and really get deep into the implementation of a CRM strategy, there is no better source of knowledge and experience than other distributors or manufacturers just like you, where you can meet with them and share ideas and learn from their pains and learn from their successes in a large user group environment. And that's what our users group is all about. It's a pretty good sized group. It's been around for 3 years. The last 2 years, we've had over 150 attendees at the users group, and the next users group is scheduled for next March. As I mentioned, some of the advanced features of distribution, some of the things I want to make sure you're aware of, we're not going to get into today, but I do want to make sure that you're aware of them. Tour de Force has a very advanced level sales planning module. Allows you to do all of your sales planning, plan by sales rep, plan by vendor, by product group, by key line. Tour de Force has over 50 levels of planning available, standard, out of the box. You pick and choose which one fits you. But I can assure you, we've had sales planning for about 8 or 9 years now, so we've probably run into just about every scenario from a sales planning perspective that's already addressed in our product as a standard feature. We have a fully integrated event planning. The feature we're going to talk about today is that project or system-oriented quoting that provides you a very flexible user interface for quoting. Public bid job management type features, really strong job management features if you're a distributor that focuses at all in the public bid sector, design builds, then Tour de Force has got some great answers for you. Pricing contract management, and then our fully integrated business intelligence tool is a very, very robust business intelligence that actually in our latest release, version 6.5, that goes to general release next Monday, we're introducing a much more broad feature set that really competes head-to-head with a lot of different business intelligence tools such as MITS and Focus and a lot of different pure BI tools. You now can get those features fully integrated within Tour de Force within one application. Now, everybody, you know, I've done thousands of demos over the last 14 years. I've probably had 500 occasions or more where quoting has been a significant pain within the organization. And everybody is seeking for that utopia, that perfect quoting tool that's going to address every need that they have. And over the years, what I've run into, really at the end of every discussion, there's a few key things that people are really trying to accomplish. First of all, people want to create a higher sense of accountability when people quote. Too many times people take a request for a quote, they send the customer a quote, but there's never any follow-up, there's never any inquiry, the quote just sits out there in the ERP with very little follow-up. Or they quote from a Excel template that they've got on their desktop or a Word template, and there's no measurability, there's no accountability to that. So creating an area of accountability or a system that is going to prompt people to follow up on quotes. It's going to notify people across the organization that need to be notified when quotes are generated, when quotes are stagnant. The other item that people are looking for is better analysis. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the old scenario that, well, I generate a quote in my ERP, and if I take that quote and convert it to an order, I really can't tell what my close rates are, what my conversion rates are. It's either a quote or it's an order. There's no way to look at a historical order and see that it got converted to a quote, because if I convert it and delete it, I lose it. So all those issues that exist in most ERP systems, that's a very common thing. Tour de force, when you quote within our system, that quote's going to live forever until you delete it. So the quote is going to be tagged to an order number. If it gets converted, it'll be tagged that it was converted to an order. It'll have the order number linked to it from the ERP, and then you'll be able to measure on, for example, looking at a trailing 6 months of everything that you've quoted, what you've won, what you've lost, what's still open, and then be able to manage those quotes. A lot of things people will talk about is the professionalism. The whole idea, early on, we had people that started to use our quotes 10 years ago, and the number one reason why they used our quote is because they wanted to be able to generate a professional-looking, visually appealing quote to present to their customer. A quote that had, for example, a cover letter from each sales rep where every quote was personalized from the person who was sending it. Not a lot of ERP systems provide that. Very limited on what you can do through the quoting templates within an ERP. The other area is accuracy. So, if you're not quoting within the ERP, then you tend to quote outside of the ERP. You have people that are generating quotes in Word templates or Excel templates. They're using item codes that don't match what's in your business system. So when you go to generate orders, you have to double entry, which goes to the next item. So all those different issues are things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the different environments that you have to quote in and what the pros and cons are of each. So the most common methods of quoting that we run into, first of all, quoting through the ERP. Everybody's familiar with that. I receive a call, inside sales, I need a price and availability on these 5 items, and either I get the order or I don't, or they'll call me back with a PO. Typically, when somebody generates a P&A quote, a lot of times they won't even create a quote in the ERP. They'll just simply tell the customer what the price is, whether that's in inventory, and then if the customer calls back and gives you an order, great. If not, that user is typically forgets about that inquiry because they moved on with their day. The other method of quoting would be through Word or Excel templates. The other area would be through a third-party application. A lot of distributors today are using third-party applications provided either that are used internally that don't really connect into the ERP, and it has no connection into your items that are in the ERP or your customer list or your CRM application. The fourth method would be quoting through a vendor-provided configurator. So in a lot of cases, you've got vendors that will require you on large jobs or on systems to log into their website, and you can configure a solution or configure a list of products, but then you need to export those products. Typically, you have the ability to take that product list, export it to Excel, but then what do you do with it? You need to merge that with other items to provide to that customer. So it's not easy to take that list and get it into a quote that you can ultimately generate. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons of quoting through the ERP. First of all, the advantages of quoting through an ERP. Obviously, it's very easy when you generate a quote through your ERP system to quickly convert that to an order. You're also able to recognize complex pricing models. So if you're using strategic pricing or contract or job pricing or matrix pricing, all that custom pricing that you've set up within your system, as long as you quote through your ERP, that's going to get respected. You do get visibility of all of your quoting areas within, or quoting your quotes within Tour de Force through their business intelligence component, which provides you a lot better levels of analysis on your quoting that you typically wouldn't get from your ERP. You're able to easily create follow-up tasks. So within Tour de Force, if I'm looking at a quote that was generated through the ERP, I can simply right-click on that quote, generate a follow-up task. It puts a link to that quote and all the information about that quote into a task, which I can then assign somebody to follow up. So at least I'm not forgetting to follow up on those quotes that I generate. In Tour de Force, if you're quoting through the ERP, you do have the ability to have quotes that fit a specific profile or a specific rule automatically create opportunities in Tour de Force and link that quote from the ERP directly to that opportunity. So for example, if you wanted to set up a rule that said any quote that I generate that's over $10,000, I want that quote to automatically generate an opportunity in Tour de Force and assign it to the appropriate sales rep. So within Tour de Force, you can do that. Then when you open that opportunity, there on the opportunity, you have a tab for looking at all the linked quotes relative to that opportunity. You also have the ability to link multiple quotes from your ERP to an opportunity. Now, where that comes into play is if you are dealing with a lot of job management where you have construction jobs where maybe you've got multiple contractors selling in or buying products from you relative to one specific job, you can assign a job number and then you can quote in any quote or any order that's tied to that project number. It could be from 10 different ship to accounts with 10 different customers, but as long as those orders and quotes tie back to that job, when you look at that opportunity in Tour de Force, you'll see all of the, basically there's a sales analysis or a business intelligence screen that allows you to look at that overall job performance of every item sold, every quote, every order, and a complete sales analysis by vendor, by product group within that particular job. That ties into a lot of the job management features within Tour de Force. And then another advantage that you gain from quoting in your ERP is that Tour de Force is going to allow you to set up alerts, and it's going to allow you to use all of that quoting information in our Build Your Own report. So when you create dashboards and analysis and scorecards, all of those all of the quotes generated within your ERP are going to be visible in the reporting and in the alerts and notifications. Some of the cons of quoting in your ERP. Probably one of the things I hear the most is that when I generate a quote, I want to have modified terms and conditions. I want to copy and paste and put information about the products I'm selling, or I'd like to generate a different template for the type of quote. You're very limited on what you can do out of an ERP when you modify a quote. It's also difficult to manage lot bill of material quoting. So if you do a lot of lot bill quoting for construction projects where you need to roll up fixture schedules and you just want to roll them up into a lot, and then if you need to convert that to an order, you want to explode them into the line items, convert them into an order, it's not easy to do in most ERP systems. Then you also have to deal with all the rigid pricing controls and the dealing with non-stock items as you generate quotes. And you're unable to create variable quote templates with Word functionality so that you can have a specific template with a cover letter by user, by branch, by region, or by the different types of quotes that you generate. And then typically, if you're not somebody who is fluent at using the ERP, you're going to be unavailable, or the quoting functions are going to be unavailable to users if you don't have access to the ERP. And then very seldom does the ERP system provide with a mobile user interface for the users to generate quotes. So that's quoting through the ERP. Now let's talk about quoting through a Word template, actually through a work template. That's a new type of a template. Actually, that should say Word or Excel. The pros, obviously, there's no controls, but it's very flexible. It allows you to manage the style of your output. You can bookmark information, so you can customize whatever you want to send to the user. It's available anytime, so as long as you've got that quote template on your desktop and you've got your computer, you can generate a quote. Obviously, the cons to this are that you're unable to access pricing. You get inconsistency, requires duplicate data entry because now you've got a quote in Excel and you need to generate that order. Somebody's got to retype that. You get lack of control on the item codes. So in most cases, you're going to leave item codes and descriptions open to user error when they go to enter those into the template. And then you've got to manually manage all of the price and cost within the system. And you've got very limited analytics because it's very difficult to report on data that's buried within a spreadsheet, individual spreadsheets, or to report on data that's buried within a Word document. All right, the next area we're going to talk about is quoting through tour de force. So when I say quoting through tour de force, I'm talking about generating the quote through tour de force. Some of the pros. First of all, tour de force is going to give you the ability to manage your item price list from the ERP. What that means, tour de force does synchronize your product list from the ERP. So when you go to generate a quote, you're searching against the same product list that you would see if you were quoting within the ERP. You can see average cost, standard cost, moving average. You can map over any cost, any price field, inventory, quantities. You can look up, you can quote across multiple warehouses. So if you have a company that has multiple warehouses, you can pick items relative to an individual warehouse. For certain systems, and we'll talk about those in a minute, tour de force does fully respect the ERP pricing. So if you're using one of our, what we would classify as a tier 1 ERP, you're going to be able to quote within tour de force, and based on the customer that you're quoting, it's going to pull up-to-date pricing based on the price matrix or the job contract pricing that exists within the ERP for that item for that customer. We do have a very flexible interface that allows you to add line items and then quickly roll those up into a kit. So if you've got a bill of material that you're quoting to multiple contractors, for example, maybe some contractors, you want to give them unit pricing. They're very good customers of yours. You trust them. You want to give them unit pricing. Other contractors, you want to take that same bill of material, roll it up into a lot, and give them a lot bill of or a lot price to include all the subsets. So we've got a very flexible interface to allow that. You can very easily add custom line items. So, you don't have to go through a process to manage or add custom line items. You can give long extended descriptions. So if you need to quote a system where you want to put a paragraph of information in the quote, very easy to do that. All of the tour de force quoting is going to be output into a Word file. So you basically think of anything that you could possibly create in Word. You could take that template or that Word document, use it as a template in tour de force, and then push the line items out. So it gives you a lot of flexibility on the look and feel of what you want those templates to look like. And again, every individual sales rep could have their own template with their own personalized information, their own cover letter, etc. And that's what this ability to bookmark personal information, so that whoever sends it, it's going to be pulling information relative to that vendor or to that user. You also have full access to tour de force quoting through our web user interface. So through tour de force mobile, you can generate quotes. You can send confirmations right from the web user interface. And then you've got the availability of quoting analytics, and tour de force provides you with a lot of different ways to look at your quotes. By line item, you can look every line item that's been quoted. You can roll it up by the quote header. Then you can run all of the analytics and also take advantage of all the alerting. We also talked about the ability to link multiple quotes from the ERP into an opportunity, for example, by a project number. We already talked about that. And then the same functionality that you'd have full access to all of your quoting activity in the analytics through the alerts and notifications, as well as the build your own report. Now, sometimes a con in tour de force is if you're not using one of our tier 1 ERP systems, you would not be able to access the pricing libraries. So you would have access to standard pricing, standard costing, but then you'd have to manually edit the pricing cost. If you don't have, again, that extended integration with the tier 1 ERP, you would have to, after you generate a quote in tour de force, you would have the duplicate data entry to push that back in to the ERP. It also requires the additional cost. So if you are using one of the tier 1 ERPs or any system that has the availability to receive information externally from the ERP, you're probably going to have the ERP company's API tool set, or you're going to have they're what typically is called their web order entry features. If you already own that with the system that you're using, then the tour de force quoting is a great solution. Now today, we have 6 different systems that we currently, actually this is actually growing because we've got a couple that we're starting now, but right now out of the box, we have existing customers running Prelude, P21, Eclipse, Infor-SX Enterprise. We're right now doing Tribute, TrueLinks. Customers right now, we've got beta sites in place right now that we're working with them. We have the access and the ability to do QuickBooks. That should be on the list if you happen to be a QuickBooks user. Another system that we have identified ability, we just need to get a customer that wants to be a beta site for it, would be with Infor-Fax as well. But basically any ERP system that has the ability, has an API or a web order entry toolkit, tour de force can use the existing framework, and it's very, very cost effective to get that initial system set up. So ultimately, everything, back to the beginning, what did we talk about? Tour de force wants to help you streamline the way you communicate internally with your customers and about your customers, but we also want to help you eliminate all those islands of data to help you create a much more efficient and a much more effective sales organization. Now, a lot of the different features, we're not going to have time to go into all of this today, but obviously tour de force has a very broad feature set. A lot of these features you'd see here would be what I would say commodity types items, except expense management and business system integration. Most of these are going to be standard features that you would expect out of CRM, but a lot of the advanced level features that tour de force has in our enterprise suite, not typically going to find those in most CRM solutions. All right, I'm going to escape out of the PowerPoint, and we're going to spend the rest of the time in a live demo. First of all, this is the manager's console, and we're not going to obviously get into all the business intelligence today. I want to first talk about when you first engage and you want to set up quoting in tour de force. One of the things that's important, and I'm not going to go through every single user option, but I am going to go into the administrative side of the quote management, just so you can get an idea of the flexibility you have when you set up your quoting. First of all, there's a lot of general quoting features that allow you to enable the ability for people to create kits. It allows you to turn on price override. So for example, if you're generating quotes in tour de force and you always want the ERP system to override, then you can set it to automatically always override, or you can give that user when they generate the option. You have the ability to what we call margin enforcement. So if you want to set up a rule with a password that says, the user can't quote below a certain margin without having an override password, you can do that. You can have recommended margins. So when users quote for the first time, you can apply recommended margins so that everything is going to be set to that recommended margin. Obviously, for different currencies, you can determine quantity increments, so that in a lot of cases people sell things by whole number only, so you can set what level of increment you want things to be quoted on. And this comes into play when you're dealing with a lot of commodities. When you generate your quote document, so once we get into the demo here, and once I go through creating a quote and generating or pushing that product list out to a quote, you're going to see that template that gets created, there's a lot of flexibility in how you name the template, the different ways that you can customize the line items. So if you have a specific color scheme or a format that you use in your organization, you can use all these different predefined table formats within Word. So you can pick and choose with the color scheme, the table formats, very, very flexible in generating your templates. If you want to track your customized quote statuses, you can track all the predefined quote statuses that you want to use for reporting and tracking, so you can add your custom ones. If I go to the product grid setup, I mean, basically what this is allowing you to do, you see all the different fields that are available in our product table. Well, obviously every company may have a specific field in their quoting at the line item level that they've brought over from the ERP These are all the different user fields that you can map over from the ERP. So there's a wealth of fields available in the product sync. And when we bring over the inventory, you pick and choose what you want to map over, and then you also pick and choose which of those fields are going to be visible to the user when they're generating a quote, but also which of those fields are going to get pushed out to the quote template. Obviously, you may want to see cost and margin when you're generating a quote, but you don't want those fields to get pushed out to the quote template. There's a lot of flexibility there. If you are set up, and this particular system is, if you have the automated quote to order process set up, every ERP that we interface has a different set of options when you look at the quote to ERP. And then you have user by user, you can determine a lot of the different options that each user has. So if you have new users where you want to lock them into a certain, what we call price calculation method, these are all the different price calculation methods. You can lock a user in and you can set their desire or set their default pricing. You can manually, or you can control who has the ability to edit prices. You can control who has the ability to edit cost. So if you have specific users that you want to be able to do cost overrides, you've got that flexibility. Whether you want to auto update pricing from the ERP. So for example, if you have a user that every time they generate a quote, you always want the ERP to apply the pricing, and you don't want them to be able to change that, you can set it to always. If it's set to never, what happens then is when a user generates a product list, after they add their products, they can click a button to say update pricing from ERP, and it'll apply all the price matrix pricing, or they can manually edit those prices if they have the user option turned on to do so. So there's a lot of capabilities and a lot of different user preferences when you set up the quoting functions in Tour de Force. Let's just walk through an example. I'm going to walk through a couple of examples to show the ease of use and flexibility in generating quotes. Now, the quoting function in Tour de Force is simply just another action. So when you're working within Tour de Force, if you receive an email from one of your contacts, and right from that email, you can generate an action. Just like you could create a new appointment, you can generate a quote. So directly from that email, if I wanted to manually create a quote, I could go action, new quote, and because I'd highlighted Don Courtney, because he's in the system, that email address, Don wants me to send him a quote on a new conveyor system. So I can name the quote. It's going to auto-index the quote ID, and you've got the ability to manipulate that description that you want created. So it opens up the what's called the quote manager. When I go to generate a quote, obviously I can add new products. When I add new products, I can search on the entire database. So if I wanted to search on all of my ASCO products, this is a pretty wide open search. I've got 35,000 items in the database. And if I want to see all of my individual ASCO products, there they are. Obviously, when I'm looking up something, I would probably do a little bit more of a discrete search, but this is good for an example. So I can add all those items, and when I say add and close, it applies them to my list. Now let's take another example that I've got in this case, maybe I received an email from Don that had a list of products, and so I saved that to my desktop. If I've got a list of products that's in Excel, if I just minimize my quote manager, I can go to my desktop, open up that Excel file, highlight that list of products, copy those, and just right-click and paste those right into my quote. When I say paste the items, it's going to pull all those items into the product import wizard, which is then going to allow you to map the fields of what's in your Excel file directly into the quote. So as I do the import, I map the fields. If I've got an item code or a field that I have mapped into an item code, it's going to try to take every item that's in that Excel list, and it's going to try to match it to an individual item in your ERP system. So if it's a list of products that your customers quoted before and they're providing you with that information, it's going to auto match those, and then it's very easy to take that list and drop them right into that quote. Okay? If you want to price the entire quote at the same price level, you can select every item on the quote, and you can go to your edit sell price calculation and say, I want to quote the entire list of products based on a 25% margin. And I can do a calculate my sell price. So now it's telling you that you've done a margin level sell price. So you can do any price calculation, any standard price calculation can be applied line by line, or you can select a list of lines to edit the sell price. You can also select a list of products, and so if you wanted to take all of this and roll it into a bill of material or a kit or a lot bill, you can simply right click and say send it to a new kit item, and call it lot of material for new conveyor. Now all of those line items are going to roll up. You can put an extended description in here and save that. Okay. If I'm below margin, I'd have to enter in my override password. Okay. I can't remember what the override password is actually. Okay. So you have the ability to take those line items, roll them up to a lot bill. If you want to explode those back out, you can simply take those line items, explode them back out of the kit, and then I can go ahead and delete that kit, and I've got my individual line items. Okay. If you're generating a quote, you have the ability to also navigate directly out to that file. So if I've got this same list of material and I've got a file on my desktop, I can simply browse out to that file, go to my desktop and grab that list and pull it in. So it's a couple more clicks. I always find it easier just to go directly to the file, copy it right out of Excel, paste it in. Okay. On the quoting, you have the ability, just like you have everywhere else in Tour de Force, you have the ability to set up and manage as many user-defined fields, so you can have multiple tabs of information that you want to track with special delivery details. So every one of these tabs is configured based on your business needs, and then every one of these fields can be bookmarked out into that template when you go to generate the actual quote. Okay. These are what we call the custom data related to a quote. You've also got at the bottom, if you just want to do a quick summary of the quote, you've got what's called the summary screen. So if you want to add inbound, outbound freight, let's take the example that I've got a quote, and actually I never priced my kit. So let me grab all those line items, and whoops. Click happy. Try that again. And if I set my desired gross margin to 25%, okay. So I've got all of my pricing. When I go down to my summary at the bottom, you can see if I've got a subtotal, additional discounts. This would be an example of if you're selling something and you're quoting a large project where the customer has given you, told you that, okay, your extended sell price is $120,000, but if you can take 5% off the deal, then the order is yours. This allows you to give a flat rate, $1,000 discount or $100 discount, or you can apply a flat percentage to the overall order. It's what I call burying the discount. So you don't want to expose the individual line item. You just want to give a lot discount or a lot dollar amount. It also allows you to add inbound, outbound freights, deposits. So if you're dealing with that type of thing in your quoting process, it's all going to be there. Now let's take, for example, that I'm quoting something that I've really never quoted before, and I'm not sure. I'll just pick some line items here. See if I can find one that. So let's say all these ASCO products. Maybe I've never quoted these before for the customer. or I want to see if I've quoted them because I'm not sure what level to quote them. If I highlight any single line item or multiple line items, if I click on my little BI tab or icon, it's going to take all these items. It's going to go out and look at all the sales history for this customer, and it's going to see if you've ever sold or if you've ever invoiced that line item ever before to that customer. It'll also see if you've got any open orders that contain that line item, or if you've got any open quotes that you've quoted that before. By default, it limits this to just look at this customer. But if you want to look system-wide at all of your accounts, obviously as a sales rep, you would only be able to see where you've sold this to your customers because you probably wouldn't be able to see all the other customers. But by looking at the quoting here, you have the ability to look at every single time that you've invoiced this particular product and what the price was that you sold it for to that customer. So the ability to, right from within the quoting, gain access to the history of what you've done with that item before is pretty powerful. I talked about adding custom line items. So if you just want to add a custom product, you click on the Add Custom Product. It'll add a custom product. You can name it, put extended descriptions, custom codes, price it, cost it. Okay. So it's pretty flexible. Now, if you want to, when you get done generating the quote, there's a couple of ways that you can send this to a customer. First of all, you can generate a quote document. So if the customer would like a confirmation, if you go to generate the document, every user is going to have access to different quotes. So if I just want to call this my conveyor quote, if I get fat finger, I can generate this template directly to PDF. So I can just take the Word file and push it right to PDF, or I can generate it into a Word file. When I go to launch that template, it's going to take all the items that I've got on this particular quote, and it's going to push them out into a template that you as a company can define. And again, this is just an example, but it does allow you to create anything you can create in Word, any field that's related to that quote, the customer you're quoting, they can all be bookmarked. So the information that's being pushed out to the quote is all relevant to how you design the template. Okay? You can have multiple pages. You can have links where different information can be put out there. You can have special terms and conditions. You can have a cover letter. There's a lot of flexibility in the way you quote. You can also take a list of products and you can have what we call email templates. So if a customer doesn't need a formal quote, they just want you to forward a copy of that pricing, you can create custom email templates that you can pull from, okay? So you can, if you want to send an email, you can also attach the file. So if you've already generated a hard copy, you can simply attach that file to it. In this particular case, I don't want to. I just want to send this directly to Don, who is the contact associated with this account. So it'll take all those products, push them out into that Word template, or I'm sorry, into that email, and just like it does for the Word template, puts all your products, you can bookmark any of the values, so this email can be completely custom based on how you want to send email confirmations of your quotes, okay? So you can generate them to a Word, PDF, or directly email the quotes. All right, so I get done with this quote, customer calls me back, they give me a PO, so I put the order number on there, and then I want to go ahead and convert this over to an order. If I have the two-way quote to order set up, I can simply take this quote from Tour de Force, and if in this particular system I don't, I can say, you would have the option here to say send to ERP quote, send to order, or remember I talked about earlier, if I as a user have the option to update my pricing from the ERP, I can take all these items and run a check against the ERP to see if there's any special pricing. And again, Eclipse, P21, Prelude, you're going to have that functionality. You'll have the send to order, send a quote, update pricing, and there's one feature that's available within Infor Enterprise, which is the ability to create an on-the-fly price contract. So a lot of people, okay, why would that be used? We deal with a lot of Infor-SX users that are dealing in commodity-based pricing. So maybe I'll take the example that I'm in a janitorial business where I'm quoting products, and I'm sitting down with a customer on my tablet, and I want to generate a list of 10 different products that they buy, and I want to set pricing right there as I sit with them. I can generate a quote, apply that pricing, send it to a contract, and it'll create that price matrix contract or that job contract file directly within the ERP. So when I walk out of the door, that pricing is in the system. So if anybody calls, talks to somebody in inside sales, I never had to do anything as an outside sales rep. I set the pricing, I gave it a start date, an end date, all the items that are on there with what the pricing is for that period of time, and it goes directly into the price matrix file in the ERP. Okay? Now, when you generate an order, it's going to update the order from the ERP. So once I process this, it's going to write back the order number so that I can, if I click on this, then I can open up and look at the order details directly from the ERP. I think I pretty much covered a lot of the features here that I wanted to go through. The last thing I want to show you, we're getting a little low on time, so I'm going to be sensitive to that. I want to make sure that you're aware of the flexibility to report and analyze this information. So if I open up my management console in Tour de Force, in Tour de Force we have what's called the BYOR, which stands for Build Your Own Report Writer, and then you can view all of those reports. These are all different sample reports. I'm not going to go through all these, but one of the reports that I had created was a report to allow me to look at my year-to-date quoting by quarter. So if I, as an executive, wanted to have a dashboard sent to me every week, every day, every month, or if I just wanted to look at it on demand, I could look at all the quoting activity across the company, looking at the count of quotes quarter over quarter, the dollar amount of those quotes. I could look at quoting by account. So what's our quoting activity look like by account, by sales territory? As you can see here, these top tables of data, if I want to drill down into those quotes, I can go directly from whatever segment I'm looking at and drill into the quotes and look at the exact quotes. So I can have a report form that gives me a high-level detailed analysis of my quoting activity, and in 2 clicks I can be looking at any quote that's contained within any of the data elements. The Build Your Own reports can be viewed whether you're online, you can view them in mobile, or you can have them scheduled to process, and you can have them sent to you via email at any time as well. All the functionality that I've shown you is also going to be respected in Tour de Force Mobile. So if I go over to my browser, log into my mobile, my demo mobile website, excuse me, this is the same system that I was just connected to when I was online. When I'm in mobile, I have full access to my quote manager. If I had generated quotes when I was online, any of those quotes that I generate are going to be in my recent items. So if I want to go back to that quote from my mobile device, I can, right from my tablet, I can look at that quote that I just generated when I was online. I can make changes to this. I could sit and review this with a customer, make changes to quantity. I can change my pricing. So I'm sitting with the customer and they say, I need to adjust the price on that line item. I can update any of my pricing. I can take this, update my delivery details, shipping details. I have the ability to convert this quote from within mobile directly into the ERP. I can forward this quote via email. So if I want to send a copy of this quote, I can pick who I want to send it to, click the draft email, the same drafts that I wanted to send it to earlier. So if I want to send a copy of this quote, to Don Courtney, I can pick Don, say send that draft, and when I say email quote, that quote is going to be emailed out by your Tour de Force mobile web server in the background. Okay? So you've got all the capabilities of managing your quotes, configuring your quotes, creating new quotes that you had online. You can also get access to that information in mobile. Okay? All right. I definitely want to respect everybody's time today. There's a couple of other items I really like to show, but I want to make sure we leave enough time for questions and answers.